Hey folks, David Stewart here. Let's talk a little bit about priorities. What ought to be your priorities in life and what order should they go in? What is your hierarchy of needs as an individual if you were trying to be creative, if you're trying to work in the creative arts and have a good amount of output? This is actually part 2 of my series, Keys to Prolific Creation, based on a video I did last week called 8 Keys to Being a Prolific Creator. I wanted to go through each of those points and give them their own video to give a little more detail rather than sort of broad strokes and like inspiring broad strokes, like some real specifics. So this is part 2 of that, which is know your priorities and put your priorities in order. Part 1 was creative process. Discover your creative process and stick to it every day. Now, this one, know your priorities, might actually be number 1. It's might be the most important one, because if your priorities are out of whack, you're going to find that you're going to be unable to do much as a creative person through a bunch of different reasons. Just as an example, if you are prioritizing trying to have a lot of creative output over, say, your health, you're going to find that your health will prevent you from having the creative output that you desire. If you are generally unhealthy, big health problems are going to stop you from having any output. And obviously, if you die early, when you're dead, your output goes to 0 and you're done. You're done with life and you're done with creating for other people. So if you really want to be highly productive, productivity really happens as a matter of consistency over time. And then we perceive it as being, well, quote, prolific. We're like, oh, this person does a lot. It's really just that you work consistently, and over time, things emerge from that. It's really not about like working yourself to death. So it's not bad to have the boot camp mentality, which is like, I'm going to work really hard for these 6 weeks. I'm going to write a book in 6 weeks. That's really a good mentality to have for a limited amount of time. But we're talking about for the long term, you really have to know where your priorities go. And if you, for instance, are not prioritizing like sleep, if you're like, I'm not going to get any sleep, and I sleep less than probably most people. I'll be honest, I probably sleep, a couple hours less than most people I know. And maybe that's like a secret life hack, is I don't, I'm okay with 6 hours of sleep, and 6 hours of sleep feels fine to me. And I'm reminded of like an Arnold Schwarzenegger thing. It's like, you have 18 hours a day to work, you have 6 hours to sleep. But if you're staying up and getting like 2 hours of sleep a night, and you're like, I'm going to power through it with caffeine, you're going to find that is really going to catch up to you. First of all, when you're really tired, you're not going to be able to be creative or have your brain function properly for you to be able to have creative output. And then, you might have like health problems from that. You might have heart problems or something like that as a result, heart palpitations from using too much caffeine. There's no shortcut, guys. And any shortcut you take has consequences. That's where it's not that there's no shortcuts. Any shortcuts, they have consequences. So if you're using Adderall or something to stay up all night and study for an exam, you're going to feel some consequences from that. You're going to have an extra amount of tired. If you're using a lot of stimulants, that can impact your long-term health. So your health needs to be a priority. You need to be getting that exercise in. You need to make sure that you're taking care of your body so that you can live to be an old person and produce all the way into your old age. And you're going to have a lot more stuff to show for it than if you're highly productive for like 2 years and then you die. So just health is a great example. Health really needs to be a higher priority than just getting workout. And if you need to take a break from whatever you're doing work-wise in order to tend to your health, you need to do that. So if you need to have a surgery, it's okay to not work after you have a surgery. Now I say that, and then I was like working the next day, but when I got like this thing put in, but I was still like dialing it down. I wasn't saying, what, I have to work. I was just like, I feel like working. I feel like it will make me feel good to do, to do a little bit of work or play some music or something. So it's okay to prioritize your health above that. Another important one is family. You don't want to sacrifice your family or your potential happiness in order to have creative output, because creative output by itself won't make you happy. It's like total happiness, for me at least, comes from the whole package put together. I have a family, I have a kid, and those things need to really, if I can't work for a day because I have to tend to my family's needs, that's totally okay. Right. And you should do that. You shouldn't feel bad. And this is maybe a problem I've had in the past, is like feel bad that I didn't do enough work because something else that is a higher priority than work required time of me. That's just how it is sometimes, because if you were to look at the alternative, which is like, well, I'm going to abandon my family when they need me, then you are going to have a complete book maybe, but you won't have anyone to care about whether you finished it. So having your family priorities in line is very important. Having your prioritizing your finances in there as well. You don't want to go bankrupt, like paying for editing services or something like that. And this is something that I probably should talk more about with writing videos, is like the value for your dollar of what you're doing. Because there's people, it's like, well, how much should I pay for an editor? It's like, you got to decide like what the value is to you. Because if you're not expecting to make a bunch of money on the book, and you really shouldn't be with your first go around, even if you like get it published through like a big 5 publisher, you may not make any money on it. That's going to determine how much you feel like you ought to pay an editor, if you have to have an editor at all. So those are things that you have to think about too, is ordering that financial thing, so that everything's in working order. You want your day-to-day life to be happy and fulfilling and stable, so that you can do whatever it is that you need to do. If you're not happy, you're going to find that it's really hard to be creative. And if you get to be, and you've done it for a long time, any period of my life where there was significant disturbance to my emotional or physical well-being, I wasn't able to have any creative output, really. So like after my dad died, that like I couldn't really get anything done in that time. And it's because your mind is not in a correct order. Your mind is seeking for survival rather than looking to create something. This kind of goes counter, I realize, to a lot of people's ideas. I mentioned like, oh yeah, you be limitless and take a bunch of smart pills and try to do a bunch of stuff in a short amount of time. It kind of goes counter to this narrative that artists have to sacrifice everything and they have to be a starving artist. It's like, no, starving artists are not happy. You want to be happy and be an artist. That should be your goal. So you really need to get your priorities in line for that. You'll find that if your priorities are out of whack, you're just not going to really be able to create for a bunch of those reasons. Either emotionally, you won't be in a good spot to think of new things. You won't be excited to work. And that's one that I left out, is like, you need to have fun, right? You need to be passionate about what you're doing. And it's hard to be passionate about music or a book that you're working on, or like a comic book that you might be trying to draw. It's hard to be passionate about those things when you are worried about how you're going to find your next meal. Like, that's just it. So your financial stuff, you need to get your financial house in order and get things consistent so that you can have that productive potential that you want. So hopefully that gives a little bit more specifics in mind for this. Now, the next thing that you can think about with priorities, and not just in terms of life, but in terms of what you're prioritizing with your creative output, that's going to vary based on what you're doing. And I can give a couple examples, right? So it's like, should you revise a book that you've already finished, or should you be writing a new book? Well, the priority there goes to which one of those is going to get a product to market faster and better. Well, if it's revising the old work, it's that. If it's writing the new book, you need to write that. So if you have a book that's already out and it's like, oh, should I spend some time like rewriting this book because I got some bad reviews? Weigh that against just writing a new book, right? Because if you just write a new book, if you take those lessons and apply them to a new work, you may find that it's less work and it's more fun to do the new book. And then later, when you don't have that new book you're working on, you can go back and like revise an older work if you want to. There's a really good example. If you're a musician, should you prioritize trying to go out and gig, or should you prioritize doing the recording? Well, in 2017, I think you actually should prioritize doing the recording, because that's your advertisement for gigging. So if you're out there like, I need to go out and stir up some performances, we need to make some money, we need to be getting out there connecting with people. If you get out there and you connect with people and like, oh, that's so great, where's your CD? And they're like, we don't have one. Recording needs to be a higher priority. You need to get that demo, you need to get that CD finished before you start trying to add the other stuff in, because that's what's going to create the opportunities in the other area, and that's what's going to make you some extra scratch when you get to the gig. Same thing with like, should I practice, or should I design a t-shirt for my merchandise sales? Well, if you want to do this as a business, you should be thinking about the t-shirt, right? Rather than practicing, because that's something that you can sell at the gig. So getting those priorities in order is good. Likewise, prioritizing what you're doing creatively below having fun. Like if you're like, oh, I really just want to play video games today. Boom, I'm going to make video games the priority. Oh, here comes the gig and I'm completely not prepared to perform this piece of music at all. Your priorities are out of whack. You got to turn that around. That's not to say that you should never read a book or watch TV or play games, but you should keep that below, right? So if you have a short amount of time in a day, the TV needs to be the thing that's going. Like in a stressful day, and this will be surprise a lot of people. Maybe it won't. I shouldn't project onto you what will surprise you, but if you have a really stressful day and you get home and you're like, it's 9 o'clock, I could go to bed or I could watch TV. A lot of people choose to watch the TV and relax from the stressful day before going to sleep. But I choose to do work. I choose all right, I'm going to go write 1,000 words. And I feel so much more prepared for bed when I write those 1,000 words or I do some meaningful contribution in my process. If I go do my process and cut the TV and the video games out for the day, I'm less stressed because I'm accomplishing my goals. And that like fills me with good feelings and endorphins and helps me relax. It's like, I've completed something. Let's go to bed. For me, that's a really good feeling. And being able to, in a stressful moment, be able to say, I'm going to leave the TV out today. I'm going to leave the TV for when I have time for TV in the weekend. And tonight I'm going to work on my music. That is going to be extremely helpful for you as well. So knowing just in an hour-to-hour, day-to-day kind of thing, what you need to prioritize. If you need to eat, you should eat instead of working, right? Because if you are hungry when you're working, you're going to be thinking about whether you should eat instead of thinking about focusing on your work. Your focus will be shot. Your blood sugar will go down, and then you'll feel bad, and you won't be able to think straight, right? Like especially if you're get like hypoglycemia or something like that. So you got to think about those sorts of things. Is that everything should all be working together. You shouldn't be sacrificing any one important thing just to make art. Art should have its place among the other important things, and not be subjugated to things that aren't important, like TV or something else like that. Exercise is very important. So if I were to tell you what you should prioritize, it's family at the top, right? And your family, to me, includes all of your important social relations, your church life, your extended family, nieces and nephews, like prioritizing making sure that's good. Below that, your health. Below that, your work, your creative work, if you're serious about that. Below that, your extended social relationships, so like friends, hanging out, that sort of stuff. And below that, like your base entertainment, video games and TV and that sort of stuff. Why should social, in my opinion, be above video games and TV? Well, those social connections are just another thing that's going to help you in case you need it. And those people also have needs of you. They might be part of your customer base if you're running a business or something like that. So it's important to maintain all of those priorities as well. And then within your creative process, knowing what you need to prioritize at a given time in order to complete a project and get the most out of it. That's something that I can't give the most specific advice on, other than some of the things that I talked about with practice. Same thing if you have a limited amount of time to practice. One more example before I go. Say you only have an hour to practice. Do you practice? Do you do you're like, okay, I need to do technique. Do I do an hour of technique, or do I do an hour of working on new music? To me, it's like you do an hour of working on new music. Technique is only there to support the music. And if you just sit down and do technique, you won't have moved as far forward as if you have worked on the new music, because the technique is in the new music, right? So there's a great example for you as well. And hopefully that this sort of more rambling little version of it with lots of little specifics has been useful to you. If you do not prioritize the correct things in your life, you'll find that your creative process breaks down and you're unable to complete what you want to complete, and you don't feel good. So make it a total holistic thing, and I promise you, over time, the output will be there. Okay, it's about being consistent and it's about live long and prosper, not live fast and die hard. Okay, that's not the way to be good at this business or anything else. So have a great one. I'll see you guys next time. One last little bit. Of course, you can buy my books. I have a couple of them here. Water of Awakening is out. The ebook is still 99 cents. I have a couple of freebies up on Amazon down below that you can check out. This little fairy tale, Yaramish and the Farmer, my sci-fi novel, which I'll pick up the series for this if I ever get enough people to read it and enjoy it. The Prophet of the God Seed, and of course, which seems to be everybody's favorite, Muramasa Blood Drinker. This will be coming to other markets as well pretty soon. So this is going off the Amazon exclusive. I'll make a video in the future about why I'm sort of getting rid of Kindle Unlimited. But anyway, so take a look at those, and I have an album coming out on October 31st, Halloween. It's called Memories Adrift by Zool, and I hope you will check it out. My preferred place for you to buy it, digitally especially, is Bandcamp. So that'd be zoolonline.bandcamp.com to pre-order it. You can get it in 24-bit WAV or FLAC, which is a much higher quality file than what you'll get on other sites like Amazon or Spotify or something like that. So please do think about that. And of course, you can also get the physical album from Bandcamp as well. I will have that up at some point, hopefully, once I have some in my possession. I can do some signed physical copies. I appreciate your support, and I hope you guys have a great day.